All right, we're recording.
Hey man, this is embarrassing, but I just lost my house and I'm trying to catch a ride for the bus. I need some money. You got any spare change? Oh, thank you. This is something that we may have all experienced on our big trip to New York or Atlanta, or maybe even here in our city of Knoxville. And in most cities in America, there's poverty, right? And people are forced to live on the streets due to their misfortune. We chose a case study, homelessness, the why and how of caring. And we adopted this case because it was something that we all were aware of and had kind of experienced before, but it was something that we really couldn't tell you much about. And the panhandling population is something that every city contains, whether there is poverty behind the sign or not. The word panhandling actually refers to people who beg for money on the streets. And typically that is found in bigger cities or just cities themselves. In our study, we were faced with the challenge of doing what is best for the organization versus doing what is morally right. In our study, there was one particular woman who was being forced to stand up for or against a panhandling law that would have really hurt the homeless population. She is battling a decision of what to do because it just didn't seem right inside of her, and it would be catastrophic to the panhandling demographic in her city. So, based on our research, we have found a solution that has the potential to create an environment where all parties benefit. City leaders create laws and regulations of really various types that make sure that their city continues to grow and is safe for the people that live there and are established there. However, in doing so, people have created and designed laws and created an environment where people who have to panhandle for money really struggle, and it's hard for them to benefit. However, in our research, we found that in order to fully equip a city to accurately address panhandling, city leaders must educate and encourage generosity towards panhandling while continuing to create laws against aggressive panhandling for the safety of the public and to improve poverty in their city. So that's kind of our thesis going into our case study. And today we're going to look at a few different things. The first thing is we're going to look at the problem of panhandling and who really is affected by that. We're going to look at Knoxville's laws and how they are relevant to this problem. And then we're going to dive into what Knoxville leaders are doing today and to improve the situation. We're also going to look at how other cities are doing to improve this situation and what the church should be doing. And finally, Kyle is going to end us out in what we should be doing as citizens of our city. Let him take it away.
Thanks, Micah. Panhandling in its entirety has a wider spread impact than we might automatically assume. In our case, the threat is making anti-panhandling laws, and these laws would implement and kind of jurisdict when and where these panhandling can occur. The laws are being implemented mainly because of the concerns of both business owners and just average citizens. Business owners believe that panhandling is negatively impacting their businesses, and citizens feel that panhandlers are being threatening and aggressive and causing them to fear their safety. And though we see all of these aspects, it also is presumed that maybe these laws want to be implemented because it will help the city itself be seen as more clean and reputable, which would bring both more tourists and also more residents to the community. In this case specifically, there are three main people groups that are impacted. The first being the poverty-stricken citizens who have to panhandle to earn their living and provide for their families. As recorded by the United States Interagency Council on Homelessness, there are an estimated 7,467 citizens experiencing homelessness in the state of Tennessee. Of that total, 558 are family households and 1,133 were individuals. And this is just a small portion of the population that are impacted in needing to panhandle in order to make a living for themselves and support themselves. So revoking some of these privileges as to when and where they can panhandle will impact the amount of money they're able to make to support themselves and the people dependent upon them. Business owners also play a really important role in this case study of ours. They feel like panhandling near their storefronts is deterring possible customers. Panhandlers being outside a store could cause customers to choose another option so they don't feel forced to donate or feel awkward or set aback by having to deny donating. Another reason is that the panhandlers' lack of hygiene may make the store look less clean and then would warp the public eye's opinion on the store and just how reputable and profitable it is. And regular citizens, mostly their main motivation is fear. They are fearful of aggressive panhandlers and want these laws passed so they can better be aware of when and where panhandling may occur so they can just be aware and avoid it if they would like to. They just want to feel safe in their community, and they feel like these anti-panhandling laws would be a way to ensure that.
Ethan, are you unmuted?
Sorry about that. So Knoxville laws and how it relates to the problem. The Universal Citation Code 39-17-313 made in 2018 states a person commits aggressive panhandling. A person who commits aggressive panhandling solicits a donation of money or goods in the following manner. We have 4 examples right here. Number 1 is by intentionally touching the person being solicited without the person's consent. Number 2, by intentionally obstructing the path of the person or the vehicle of the person being solicited. And number 3, by following a person who is walking away from the person soliciting the donation, unless that person has indicated that the person wishes to make a donation. Or by number 4, by making any statement, gesture, or other communication that would cause a reasonable person to feel fear or personal harm for refusing a solicitation of a donation. And if you do commit one of these, the first violation of the section is a Class C misdemeanor. A second violation of the section is a Class B misdemeanor, punishable by a fine or a term of imprisonment not to exceed 90 days or possibly both.
Thanks, Ethan. Okay, so as he just outlined, there are laws put in place by the city leaders who are trying to help out in this situation, but they also have done a little bit more. There's other rules for the panhandlers in place. So one code section says that there's a list of places where you are allowed to do this act of asking for funds, but if you do so in these areas that are not on the list, then there's a fine for it. It's $119. Unfortunately, this doesn't work for everybody. It's not a deterrent for all. One guy said that he just works as a panhandler to help fuel his smoking and drinking habits. So it does work for some, but not for all. But we cannot assume that it's the case for all people. The real problem underlining this whole issue is homelessness. panhandling is helpful for those who are unemployed and don't have any other means to provide for their family. But it's in turn, they're left alone, oftentimes hungry, and always on the streets. But the city of Knoxville has seen this as an issue and created an Office of Homelessness to help out. They meet 4 times a year and work to support those affected in homelessness. The plan that they set in place works toward accomplishing 5 main goals. They provide collaboration and civic engagement, improving the system that helps them, creating and maintaining access to a variety of housing, increasing economic opportunities for them, improving health and stability.
All right, thank you, Meg. All right, so moving on from there, we're going to be talking about what other cities have done to improve their own panhandling problems. Obviously, panhandling isn't just a problem that is centered in our own scruffy city. Knoxville, of course, has bad homelessness and panhandling problems, but it's a problem that affects the entire country and the world around it. So to kind of give you an idea of what other cities have done, I'm going to give you 3 examples. 2 of them kind of highlight just the city not really keeping all parties in mind and really just kind of helping out only one side. But then one of them is going to be showing what a really good example of how a city is helping both sides to solve the problem together. So first example we got is Dayton, Ohio. Dayton, Ohio instigated laws that prohibit panhandlers and pedestrians from coming within a certain range of cars that are on the road and asking for money and handouts, of course. When the laws were passed, this was made to look like it was for the safety of both the people in the car and outside. And this is not technically untrue. Of course, when panhandling happens on the road, there's definitely going to be a higher risk of injury. Somebody not looking and hitting somebody, obvious things. So even though that is true, it's often speculated and pretty much known at this point that the law was really only passed so that people in the car didn't have to worry or think about panhandlers, and they didn't have to worry about them coming to the door and asking for handouts. So again, while it did help some people, stay safer, it really just hurt the panhandling community and didn't do anything to help them. A lot of both homeless and non-homeless citizens of Dayton spoke out against this law, saying that it needs to be revised to help both sides. So that's one example that's really just not helping the homeless side. Now we're going to look at Syracuse. Syracuse instigated a program that gave panhandlers an opportunity for work and for lunch. So what the city officials did is they bought a large 15-seater van and they hired somebody to simply drive around the town and find panhandlers and offer them a day's work. The day's work would involve stuff like beautification of the city, such as picking up litter, working in landfills, etc. For a full day's work, the panhandlers were gifted a free lunch and a $50 bill at the end of the day. The solution ended up working so well for Syracuse that so many people wanted to work for the city that the city actually bought 2 vans just to fit everybody and spread that solution to cities around them. This is an amazing example of a city who truly has both sides, actually all 3 sides of the problem in mind. They're beautifying the city, they're helping the people who really need it, the panhandlers who actually need the money, and they're just making it an overall better environment and increasing quality of life for everybody. So going on from there, the third example I have for you is from the LAPD. In Los Angeles, they're really cracking down on what they claim to be aggressive panhandling. They define aggressive panhandling as intentionally blocking passage of pedestrian or vehicle, using violent or threatening gestures, closely following or approaching again after being denied, or using profane, offensive, and abusive language. Ethan highlighted those in greater depth earlier, so you already know what we're talking about. But on top of those, they also prohibited panhandlers from panhandling near banks, ATMs, or any personal vehicles. So while they claim it to be aimed at aggressive panhandling, it's really just more at panhandling as a whole, and it's not doing anything to help panhandlers. It's just hurting them. So kind of like with Dayton, it's really not, it's only aimed at helping the more financially stable in the community. It's not at all aimed at the panhandlers themselves. So moving on from there, I'm going to hand you over to Nathan.
So as a group, we spent the majority of time on our presentation so far today looking at the way that city leaders and already existing laws have been able to handle the situation of panhandling up to this point in time. But as Micah stated in the beginning, there's a large portion of a moral piece that needs to be addressed and factored in and talked about as well. In order for our group to develop what we thought was a possible conclusion to this situation in our case study that was presented us, we had to bring our own personal faith into account for us to be able to feel the moral obligation and the way that the woman in our case study was feeling. The first thing we did when we wanted to take these moral pieces into account was just dive straight into scripture. We started in Proverbs. In chapter 3, it says, "Do not withhold good from them whom it is due when it is in your power to act. Do not say to your neighbor, 'Come back tomorrow and I will give it to you,' when you already have it in you." As well as a few chapters down in Proverbs, in chapter 28, it's explained that those who give to the poor will lack nothing, but those who close their eyes to them receive many curses. In these two verses, it basically explains to us that those of us who have been blessed with riches and have plenty should be willing to give to those who are less fortunate. But with that being said, we understand that it's not entirely difficult for us to pull verses out of context and kind of use them for what we want. So we kept diving into scripture to gain more context, and we decided to look into the life of Jesus. And in doing so, we find people helping Jesus continuously, taking him in and caring for him, even when they had no idea who he was, and he was a complete stranger to them. And as we continue to look, we see many other situations where people are significantly caring for others and just doing good deeds for those who they may not know or may be less fortunate. And all the way throughout the New Testament, we see this. As a result of these scriptural findings, we concluded that taking care of the homeless has a really high spot when it comes to Christians and showing mercy towards our brothers and sisters. Our faith-based research, though, and our moral guiding research did not stop just at scripture, though. As we continued with our research, we ran across a study that Baylor University conducted. And in this study, they talked about multiple faith-based organizations and the way that they have influenced their city and the homeless community there. And over half of the sheltered beds in these cities that were surveyed come from faith-based organizations. Along with that, these faith-based organizations are also the leading force in improving and developing the homeless community in the area and being able to provide for them. This study provided a lot of hope for our group as we looked into it. And we thought that even though it is a small case study, though, a small sample size from this study, it provided hope. But we do understand that there is a large amount of things that we need to do and continue to do as Christians as well to provide help for the homeless community.
Yeah, so as Nathan said, the moral aspect is huge for our presentation, but that doesn't mean that we just completely ignore the fact that the city leaders have a huge role in the making of laws. Earlier in our presentation, Sam outlined some laws that other cities have, like Dayton, who limits panhandlers' freedom in order to make people uncomfortable. In Syracuse, who started a panhandlers' freedom, a group for homeless people to give them temporary jobs with a meal and a day's wage. If more laws could be made to reflect the heart of what Syracuse did, cities not only would be helping the homeless, but themselves as well, seeing as that there would become less and less homeless people and poverty in their city. You know, we're not here to suggest that one law is going to fix everything, because we understand this is a very complicated problem. But if people were to reflect the heart of what Syracuse did and have that love and self-sacrificing in their laws, change would most definitely come. And all this doesn't disqualify us, people who hold regular jobs, that we don't make laws. In the beginning, Micah stated that our thesis was this, that in order to fully equip the city to accurately address panhandling, city leaders must educate and encourage generosity towards panhandlers while continuing to create laws against aggressive panhandling for the safety of the public and to improve poverty in their city. Yes, the main emphasis is on city leaders, but we also note that generosity is a huge part in all of this. So even if the city leaders let us down, and it is everybody's responsibility to be generous towards panhandlers. We need to push city leaders to make laws that benefit all parties. But in the meantime of them working on that, we can be generous in our actions and our possessions. What does that look like? Instead of just walking by a homeless people and trying to avoid eye contact with them, stop and talk to them, see how they're doing, care about their life, and help them as best you can. And on that note, maybe you can give them money or food. Maybe once you hear more about their life, you can refer them to someone you know that can help them. Maybe you can give them a job, and maybe that person is even you. And a few other things that we noted that we can do, but if that focus more on our attitudes and the community's attitudes, is to educate others. Let people know what homeless people go and help them understand the pain and uncertainty they have to endure day in and day out. In order to do this, though, we must also keep an open mind and help others consider that same possibility. If we start looking what is only best for ourselves and our immediate needs of our community, we will have lost the love and self-sacrificing attitude that hurts not only us, but homeless people as well. And lastly, be kind, generous, and merciful. Yes, not every person on the corner is truly homeless, but don't let that harden your heart and make you become a cynic, because the large majority are. Yes, we need city leaders to create just laws that benefit all parties, but at the end of the day, like most everything else, change starts with you.